Yo everyone, welcome back to Brand New Techish. It's me, Michael Behane with the cold, but I'm here. And I'm also here with...
Dorsey of Hustle Crew.
You're not going to explain what Hustle Crew does.
Well, we're on a mission to make workplaces more inclusive.
There we go.
Careers, community, training. Check us out, Hustle Crew Live on socials.
There you go, plug your shit. All right, cool. So the first story, so a man called Jeffrey Hinton, he's basically known as the godfather of AI, basically helped to, I don't know, sounds so gangster, innit?
Nerd.
Refuse. So he's the godfather of AI, and basically he was really important in terms of developing neural networks, which is what ChatGPT and a lot of these kind of generative AI tools are kind of based on.
Yeah.
He left Google amicably. Been there for a long time, stellar performer, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And has now decided to do a complete 180 after spending all that time cashing out at Google, making a whole bunch of money. Now he's like, I'm really worried about AI.
Oh, is he
And
now?
he's now saying that he fears that this could run away from human beings, and we're not prepared for a society where there are things that are smarter than us.
Oh, is
and
it?
And they could be really misused by bad actors.
Wow.
Now, we wrote an article on Pocket basically saying that actually this is not the first time someone said this before, right? So Timnit Gebru, who was an AI ethicist at Google, black woman of Eritrean heritage, shout out to my sister, she basically had warned that this is getting out of control and was reprimanded, essentially, and faced backlash and wasn't given kind of the green light to kind of go ahead and express her thoughts and concerns, and eventually basically was fired.
Yeah.
What's going on
sad
here?
Day in tech.
Yeah, sad day in tech. What's going on here? Like, do you think this guy basically probably... he himself would have got fired if he had spoke up within Google, or do you think it's a thing of it's got to come from the right kind of person, basically?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Lay into them. What do you think's happening?
What is happening right now in the industry is whitewashing of AI ethics.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. I, for one, am really scared about this because the first people to speak about the dangers of tech as it was developing and the lack of ethics were underrepresented people, black people. Like when the first Apple Watch launched, it couldn't really work properly on dark skin. There are still hand dryers in China right now that can't even recognize black hands when they go under them to dry hands. So, in the black community, we have been saying like, we need to have more representation in the room and we need to approach this development with caution. And I think like Timnit Gebru was one of the first people that, really brought to light some of the dangers I wasn't even aware of. And then there's the amazing work of like the Algorithmic Justice League as well with like Joy Buolamwini. And it's really frustrating and really upsetting that when thought leaders from our communities step forward with the facts, with the research, and lay out the case, these companies shut them down.
Right.
Like they don't respect their authority and they don't respect their power. But the minute someone from the dominant group speaks up and literally delivers the same message, they're grabbing headlines in the New York
Times front page. It's crazy, isn't it? Right.
And I think the messed up thing about Timnit Gebru is she was fired from Google, which meant that she didn't get any compensation. She wouldn't have let her stocks materialize. Like she would just been kicked out the door with nothing.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, we don't know that, but potentially, yeah.
Potentially. Meanwhile, someone else, leaves on their own terms,
Right.
tells the world the same story, and is heralded a champion, a hero.
Yeah, it doesn't make no sense. And I think what you're saying about underrepresented people, like we feel the brunt of these technologies more.
Yes.
Primarily because obviously the lack of training data on black people, on dark skinned individuals, these technologies end up basically not working with us well. So even like facial recognition technology, if you're black, you're more likely basically to be misidentified, and also you're more likely to basically have racial recognition technology be used on you because you happen to live in areas that are disproportionately more have higher surveillance.
Yeah.
So the repercussions are crazy. And we had an article on Pocket actually where a dude was arrested and charged with a crime. 100% wasn't him.
Wow.
And it was based on facial recognition technology.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that a lot of the prominent voices in this space tend to be, black and black women.
Yeah, it's really worrying actually because AI is trained on existing data sets, right? So if we wanted to ask a computer, right, to make a parole system more efficient, hey AI, who should go up for parole? Well, the AI is going to look at who historically has been granted parole by judges.
Yeah.
Let's look at data in the US. If you're going up for parole against a judge, you're likely going to be facing a white judge.
Yeah.
And research shows that because of affinity bias, white judges are more likely to grant parole to white criminals than to black criminals. So AI is going to look at the existing data and go, black criminals don't get parole, but white criminals do.
Right.
So my decision is grant all the white criminals parole and
Yeah.
don't give it to any of the black ones. It's not going to necessarily look at the facts of every case because it's also trying to act based on a trend.
And then also, even if you say to it, like rule out race, it will still look at other characteristics. So let's say it might not realize that this is a predominantly black area. So it might say people based in this part of New York tend to not get parole. Therefore, I'm going to factor that into my,
Exactly.
decision making process. Yeah, it's messed up.
What about autonomous vehicles?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because, if AI ethics is a field that's being underfunded, and we know that that's happening. Elon Musk took over Twitter. One of the first departments he laid off was the ethics department. Really really big risks in like the development of autonomous vehicles, for example, are in trouble. So Elon Musk also is the CEO of Tesla. Now, a study by Georgia State University, and this study must be from at least 2019, there's probably new data out, found that autonomous vehicles could not recognize dark-skinned people on the road. So if there was a pedestrian crossing in test scenarios, they would stop for white people, not stop for black people. I ain't walking on the street where I'm getting run over.
Yeah. You know what? The one thing about autonomous vehicles that doesn't worry me, Elon's been bullshitting for like 20 years. It's around the corner, guys. I remember you telling me that you didn't want to learn to drive because you were like, autonomous vehicles. If you go back to the old techish archives, you were like, I'm not learning to drive.
I'm waiting for my
car's
robot
driving me. Yeah. It's not coming. He's been saying that for 10 years. Even 10 years ago, he's like, we're going to be in Mars in the year 2020. Bro, like, what's happening? You know what I'm saying? So don't worry. Don't lose too much sleep about it, about getting run over by a car that can't tell you the difference between you and thing. But in principle, it's worrying.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Let's think. You know what the thing about AI actually? I was listening to Sundar, the CEO of Google, do like his fake version of the Apple thing. That's funny actually, isn't it?
The
Because
presentation.
no companies used to do that until Steve Jobs kind of came in there and revolutionized. So now every company's got to do a presentation.
I
Like,
know.
I don't need to care. I don't need to know about it. Google Sheets has changed. It's font. We need to have it doesn't have the same feel for a software company as well. They're like, look at Google Maps. Look what we can do now. I'm like, okay. Anyway, this could have just been like a Notion like page. You could send it to us. But he used the word AI like an astonishing amount of times.
Really?
Like a million amount of times.
Buzzword of the day, bruh.
They got caught slipping
Hustle
though.
crew AI.
They got caught slipping, Apple, Google, I think. Yeah, I think they did. In the sense that like, I think people compared the previous events they had done 2 years ago and there was hardly any mention of the word AI.
Yeah.
And now they realize they're essentially in a kind of arms race with Microsoft and OpenAI. And how is it that a company of that scale, of that success, with that many so-called smart people were just blindsided, where they were just rich off the hog, or they just thought, you know what, we got an unassailable position, search is where it's at. Because I use search a lot less, I'll be honest with you. Like I use ChatGPT a lot more. And I think a UK fund manager came out and said that Google is no longer an automatic buy just because it's an uncertain future with things like ChatGPT. What's your thoughts on Google making this pivot now, going all in on generative AI? So just to actually clarify, they're now rolling it out on Google Docs. They're now rolling it out on Gmail. So
like 2 months after Notion?
I know, right? but much more people use Google Docs, and much more people use Gmail. So now you can within your Gmail
get on Notion. No.
You can I know. But within your Gmail though, now you can be like, yo, like just write me this email, reply back to this email.
Right. Yeah.
And there was a whole bunch of AI startups that were Chrome plugins that were doing that. They've all been wiped off the map basically right now.
Yeah.
So 2-part question: do you think this will work? B, and a 3-part. Do you think this will work? Too little, too late, and why did it take them so long?
Can Google now dominate the AI market, especially as far as generative AI, consumer use case as well as business use case? I mean, first mover advantage is an advantage for a reason, right? And I think ChatGPT, I mean, there's a South Park episode about ChatGPT. Like, it's the coinage of the word. And I just don't really see that product name going away. And also, it's been integrated into so many things already. I mean, look, at the end of the day, people are also lazy. They're going to go for the most frictionless thing. We're probably early adopters on generative AI because we're entrepreneurs and we see the applications, the ways to like improve.
Too much time on Twitter as well.
100%.
No
too
lives.
much time on Twitter. And we have no lives. So I think as a play, it's too soon to tell. Like, let's just wait and see. Like, let's just wait and see on how it is adopted through the Google Suite and businesses that use the Google Suite. Can they win this game? It's hard to say. I don't know. I do think Sam Altman is a very impressive person. Like,
yeah, he's smart.
I remember when Sam Altman came to London in 2018, an email just went out from Y Combinator or something like, oh, Sam Altman's going to be speaking at like the Royal Institute.
Did you go?
I went, yeah, because...
Oh, that's your boy, yeah? That's your boy.
Because,
you got a picture?
You know, for people like us, how to start a startup is iconic, right?
Yes,
like that YouTube series.
A lot of great free education on
generation of founders that came up, especially in the 2010s.
Yes.
That was our MBA. That was our school, right? Yeah. So when I got this email, like Sam Altman was going to be in London, I was like, of course I'm going to go.
No-brainer.
I went super early because I thought there was going to be like, it was first come, first serve. I thought there was going to be a long line out of the building. In fact, the theater wasn't even full.
So you had an intimate.
We had this intimate conversation with Sam Altman. He talked about the ecosystem. He talked about the future, but he also talked about the role that technology had in genuinely improving the lives of people all across the world. And at that time, I think he was more focused on like health and like YC and general stuff like that. But I think there's a certain like romance to like a startup coming up, dominating AI, taking on big tech. And they might be able to use a bit of that like underdog to win this race against Google. Final point. Why did it take Google so long to get into the generative AI game when in theory with their Office tools, it would have made so much sense for them to do it? I feel like this brings us back to the meta conversation where Zuck's like, yo, we need to be nimble. We need to think like a startup. I think it's very difficult for companies at Google scale to like think quickly, act quickly, respond quickly, iterate. And maybe also Google got complacent.
100%. You know what? I think I saw so many day in the life, like TikTok type videos, and I was like, there's a problem here. I'll be honest with you. Speaking of that, actually, so now they're calling it a perk session. So Google has scaled back a lot of the kind
perk
of perks.
Session.
Yeah.
Not just perks.
Yeah. They've scaled back a lot of the perks now. Like, I think in terms of like, they've limited how much food you can get. There's not going to be, you know, that kind of you're waiting on hand and foot type stuff with the launch. I don't know what specific ones, but a lot of companies are following suit. Is that indicative of we're just in a different era now where they're like, you know what, like, we can't afford to do this, number one. I mean, they can afford to do it. Let's keep it real. So
I was going to say they
absolutely can afford to do it.
People are greedy.
But what they're doing now is they're signaling to the market we are going to be much more of a lean operation.
Yeah.
And their stock prices have gone up. Basically, Facebook, Meta and Google, basically. And this is part of that trend, really, isn't it? Like, we're no longer startups.
Yeah.
As crazy as it sounds, like Google and Facebook were still seen as kind of like startups, and growth was where they were going to get all of their value. It's not about growth no more. It's about eking out profit as much as humanly possible, similar to like Apple. So what's your views on the perk session? Is it like... Obviously, we can't feel sorry for these employees.
I think
these
it's
are the most
more
privileged
stock
people in
price
the world.
signaling. I don't think it's legit. I don't think it's real. Because let's go back to the origins. Okay, so for people who haven't actually worked in these tech companies, in these startups, you're thinking like, wow, you get free breakfast, you get free lunch, you get free dinner. I used to go to the AngelList offices in San Francisco all the time and laugh at the fact that I could order like a $35 breakfast, like $16 bee pollen smoothie. Hell yeah, company's paying for it.
Naval, yes. Holla at your boy, Naval.
$16 bee pollen smoothie, egg white omelet with spinach on the side, you name it. But here's the thing, you got to be at work for breakfast, right? There, so you're showing up to work at 8 a.m. Then suddenly everyone starts to go, hey, should we just order dinner? And suddenly you're like, yeah, well, what are we going to get? Well, we can get anything. We can get sushi. We can get Mexican. You're like, yeah, do you know what? Yeah, get me a sushi platter. But you're still at work at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're like, wait, I've been in the office for like 12 hours. So what we forget is that these weren't perks. These were a way to get you to stay in the office longer and work more than your contracted 40, 50, 60, 70, 80-hour week or whatever it is. So I think that when companies say, we're going to pull back the perks, it's a signal to the stock market and to analysts to go, oh, okay, they're doing things to like, you know, be more lean.
Yeah.
But what it might actually look like on the ground maybe isn't so different. I think they still want people there working overtime, but not calling it overtime. What do you think?
No, I agree. One interesting thing, and this is my personal theory, do you think the day in the life trend basically kind of ruined it for everyone? Now, you see me, if I've got a good thing going on, I'm not exposing it to the whole world. If I've got a glitch in the matrix
you got the cheat code.
If I got a cheat code for if I either A, infinite money, or B, infinite comfort and basically not having to do much, why am I gonna tell everyone? Clout is killing my people. Just do your thing, keep it quiet. I understand why, because obviously, listen, were there people that were inspired to get into tech based off that? Probably. So that is a good thing.
Cool.
And is it their fault? It's not no one's fault. Obviously, it's probably more frothy times led to that.
Yeah.
That didn't lead to frothy times. So I understand why, obviously, in all seriousness. But I just did find it funny as a kind of content trend.
Yeah.
That it just wasn't presenting the total picture. Number one, two, and it gave an inaccurate reflection of what. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, so many of these tech companies have kept their behind the scenes quite guarded.
Right.
And like, I think there's many, many reasons for that. Like, obviously, as someone that works in culture, there's some shady shit happening in the culture that they didn't want exposed. But then there's also like research and development related stuff. You know, one screenshot goes wrong and your competitors have lines of code or whatever. We have talked about that. But I think also it's that air of mystery, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's think about it. It's software. It's not gold. It's not like ARMS.
R&D,
It's like tools, digital tools that help you be more efficient, priced at a crazy price tag. The margins in tech are ridiculous.
Yeah, the margins are fat.
Like there's a reason why they have these big market caps. Software is eating the world, right? Like Mark Andreessen famously said. And I think for them to protect that price tag, they need that mystique. And then social media came in. Every employee wants to be the main character in their own little reality show of their TikTok channel.
Right.
And I think they chipped away at that mystique.
Okay, so you think the real question is, did the day in the life trend hurt the stock price?
Yes.
You think so?
Definitely.
Do you think there was some analyst watching those videos and was like, you know what, these people ain't even working that hard. Why am I going to invest in this company?
Because Google's out there saying, don't worry, we're like developing this new thing. We're developing that. We're developing this. And then analysts are just like, you're starving developing
chilling.
shit.
They're chilling.
in a pool in Mexico. 100%.
Okay.
It's
cool.
like the secret sauce recipe was revealed.
You saw behind the curtain, like, you guys are not working that hard. Let's keep it real. You know what? So prayers and thoughts, I have to go out to Jamie Foxx. I have to put that out there, man. He's in hospital. You don't know this. You've not been following this.
I'm only read Techish news and
okay,
Pocket News.
That's good. That's what I like to hear. The Pocket Weekly.
News.
Subscribe to the Pocket Weekly and to the Hustle Crew newsletter.
Exactly.
Yeah, so no, Jamie, man, he's a 55-year-old man, and apparently he's had some sort of stroke. His family have kept his medical condition like pretty well under wraps, basically. But we don't really know. It's a private matter, obviously, but it's touch and go. Like, I see tweets where like they're saying, like, some hip hop blog called like Jasmine Brand or the Shade Bar, they're like saying the Shade Room, sorry, they're saying how like his family are expecting the worst now.
Okay.
So two things. One, I'm grateful actually, and I'll give shout out to Elon for this. There's a feature called Twitter Notes, or I think it's called Community Notes.
Okay.
Essentially, if a tweet goes viral enough,
Yeah.
there'll be something underneath it saying this is not true. Basically, have you seen that feature?
I haven't seen that yet.
So basically, there was a tweet saying how Jamie Foxx's family are now expecting the worst, and there was a Community Notes that said that actually there's been no report from his family about Jamie Foxx's condition.
Okay, great.
So that's good. So shout out to Elon for that. I would give credit for that feature. The thing is that it's interesting though is that like, as a society, we are now defying age for longer and longer. And when the pandemic happened, I saw guys like Diddy and Kevin Hart with the greys. I had never seen that before. I didn't realize that
they dye their hair.
They dye their hair, exactly. For someone like Jamie Foxx and P. Diddy, these are middle-aged men.
Yeah.
So when I'm sitting there seeing Jamie Foxx having a stroke, I'm like, actually, he's almost 60. But like, as a society now, the exterior now, he's looking like a young man, 20, 30 years younger.
Yeah.
I'm still in the club.
Ageless.
Yeah, ageless.
And black don't crack.
And black don't crack as well. So then you got to be like, yo, but on the interior, you got to look after yourself, man. And it's just interesting how there's now that kind of, we're afraid of aging externally, but maybe not necessarily looking after ourselves the most internally. I don't know.
Can I also just like make a comment on like black masculinity and like seeking like health care support and like that as a sign of weakness? Because you and I were at the theater a few weeks ago, and like I just gotta give a shout out to that production for black boys who considered suicide when the hue got too dark. And now that production was like incredible.
Amazing.
If you haven't seen it, please check it out.
It's sold out now,
based in the UK, they go through the black male experience, and one of the scenes that really touched me was where one of the characters was reflecting on his dad's battle with prostate cancer.
Yes, you're right.
Right? And he didn't tell his family until the end. And he says, I had to choose between being a black man and my health.
Right.
Because for him, that condition was weakness. And for him, black man has to be strong. Because he's fighting against so much in society. And I've seen this like, with members of my own family, and I lost my dad a couple of years ago. And I just think that like we still have, and it's maybe not just like black male community, maybe it's the whole male community, maybe it's toxic masculinity within patriarchy, but there are men who are not getting professional help because it feels at odds with their sense of self. Yeah,
it's also a thing where some people just don't want to, if they don't face it, then it's not real. So if you're feeling like, well, as soon as you go to the doctor, all of a sudden now it becomes real. You know what I mean? I've had people that have had a cough for a very long time. I'm like, have you got that checked out? Nah, I'm good.
Interesting.
You know what I'm saying? So
like
then when
denial?
Denial. So when you go to when you sit in front of a doctor and it's like, actually, you've got stage whatever, God forbid, it then becomes real and you've got to face the reality of your mortality. But if you can just deny it for a very long time and just think that, because people in general, like we don't face death that often until someone we know does die, when we want to believe that we're immortal.
Of course.
So you kind of have this correlation in your mind between the hospital is where you go to get sick and not actually the place that you go to when you're sick. So you just if I don't go to the hospital, then I'm not going to get sick and I don't have to acknowledge the fact that I'm going to die. So that's a big part of it, I think. But hopefully, shout out to Jamie Foxx. Hopefully he gets better.
I hope so.
Because we don't want to lose Jamie. He's one of the most talented people of a generation. This guy can sing, act,
everything.
You know what I mean?
Is he an EGOT? He should be.
I think he hasn't got what's the one to do with stage show?
Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony.
He hasn't got a Tony.
Okay, give this man a Tony.
Honorary on his deathbed. Tony, there we go.
Come on.
Yeah.
Skills.
Definitely,
jams.
definitely one of the most talented people of a generation. So hopefully we don't lose him. What else do we want to chat about?
Women can't have nice things.
All right, you want to talk about why women can't have nice things? Break it down for me.
I'm tired.
Go on.
This patriarchal society that we're living in ruins everything I like.
Yeah.
Literally ruins everything I like. So I was checking out layoffs.fyi the other day. There's been over 200,000 layoffs recorded on that page in 2023 alone.
I'm sure some techish listeners are listening to the show right now.
Hey, yeah.
Our thoughts are with you.
Honestly, by the way, check out my Layoffs to Lemonade training on hustlecrew.co/academy to level up and bounce back and get back in the game. But yeah, one of the companies that I've really been excited about this year, Chief.com, is also part of the layoffs crew.
Right.
So Chief.com, if you don't know, female founders, I think it's actually now one of the companies that's like raised the most by female founders because they're at a unicorn valuation. But Chief.com is on a mission to advance the careers of women, specifically getting more women into the C-suite, into the boardroom, completely changing the demographics of corporate leadership for greater equity, equality, and advancement. So the way that it works is similar to the Wing. They have physical spaces, clubhouses where women can meet. But the real accelerating element is their mentorship and coaching program.
Right.
So a lot of people know that one of the hardest things to get is actually sponsorship. Like someone who is in a position to open doors for you. Like teach you how to get from VP to SVP, SVP to C-suite, help you land deals, help you win new contracts. So one of the things that you get access to when you pay for your Chief.com membership is all these incredible high-flying women who are also in the network, also in the game, purely with the purpose of how can we help each other elevate, rise, etc. And they have like some incredible high-profile people. I'm talking like Jessica Alba of The Honest Company, like all kinds of people in that network. And I'm sad because I feel like when people set out with a mission that is focused around representation, inclusion, or anything, they face like additional levels of scrutiny whenever anything goes wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, right? You shouldn't bear the mission of equity and inclusion lightly, right? You should definitely not use it as some kind of virtue signaling thing where you just try to like get a bit of press, but really you don't care. But at the same time, it feels like because of mainstream media, who dominates it, who makes the decisions, who gets to pick the final picture, the final headline, every time women set out to do something to advance women, the minute one tiny little thing goes wrong, it's like, shut it down, kill it, crush it. This happened with The Wing. Yes, The Wing had problems with staff. Yes, it had problems in their community. There were issues of like microaggressions, racism, kerfuffles, this, that, and the other. But from there, it snowballed to the point where like the CEO stepped down. And then it snowballed to the point where the business shut down. And I will tell you, having tried so many different clubs, so many different co-working spaces, nothing beats The Wing.
Yeah.
And now Chief.com is also under threat. And I'm just so worried. Actually, I have my Chief.com interview soon. But I'm just so worried that something's going to happen again. And another thing that's like so good is going to end too soon. How do we stop this from happening?
I don't know. It's a very difficult question. I think The Wing was interesting because I remember there was a lawsuit that was filed against them by, I don't know, just some hater dude who basically said that it was discriminatory, that I couldn't apply to join as a man, basically.
Do you know that guy files a lawsuit against every female-focused business? Because when I was doing Alpha at Y Combinator, Y Combinator were like, by the way, like in our pre-launch brief, they're like, just so you know, this man, he's like known. He's like in the YC files. Like,
how sad of a person do you have to be?
Like he's known in the startup world. Like anytime you're about to launch anything female, like, by the way, risk factor, this guy's going to sue you.
That's insane. That's insane. But obviously with The Wing, it was multifactorial. There was that. Yeah. And I'm sure that takes up a lot of energy when you're a CEO, that you've got to deal with a lawsuit that's basically threatening the very concept of your business. Yeah. Then part two, obviously, they were targeted at, it was a very expensive product.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up in a situation where it's primarily affluent women. And in the States, for example, in New York, I think, obviously you ended up in a situation where it was black and brown staff. And then it was predominantly like white women using the product. And then there ended up being some sort of issue where people were being talked down to. And then black members were feeling like, you're not looking at me like I'm the help. Like I don't work here. You know what I'm saying? So then not taking that kind of, not being mindful of the kind of intersectional approach basically meant that it kind of blew up to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So there's that. Basically, you've got to kind of...
Why do we throw the baby out with the bathwater?
Yeah, no, don't get it twisted. I think because running a business is hard.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, I think people that end up joining these kind of community led type businesses, we're not gentle with it. We have high expectations. If you put yourself forward as like, I'm representing the community and I'm advancing women, or I'm advancing people of color, I'm advancing black people, all of a sudden it's like you're held to a level of scrutiny even by the very same community that you're trying to uplift, quite harshly. And then obviously there's the outside forces. Then obviously investors that also don't want to back you. And then obviously it's no longer 0% interest rates. So now anything that is not a tangible return or profitable is almost dead in the water. Yeah. So it's very difficult. There's challenges that a normal business faces, and then they're compounded by what we described. But that's funny. There's that one guy out there who basically files a lawsuit. That tickles me. I can't lie.
Imagine also like,
but how many gentlemen clubs have existed for like 100 years? Like, what's wrong with you, bro? Like, just
do you know
live your
what's so
life in
interesting?
peace.
I was like reading in like, Iyanla Van Sant, she's amazing. I'm obsessed with her.
Yeah, your hero.
Spiritual leader. And in her book, Until Today, a book of daily prayers and meditations, one of them for yesterday, on the day we're recording anyway, was like, what would your obituary say? Because it's a really interesting way for you to judge if you're living the life you want to be remembered by.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this bro's obituary is going to be like, anytime women try to do anything to make life better for themselves, he sued them.
Yeah, it's real talk.
And
speaking of Miss Van Sant, actually, she was in the news actually going viral because she was being interviewed by a person called Ebony K. Williams, Miss Ebony K. Williams. She's a lawyer and a host of an online TV show.
Oh, okay.
And they were discussing expectations when you're dating, basically, and what kind of partner you want. And Ayana said to her, like, oh, would you date a bus driver? Because I would.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? And Ebony K. Williams was like, well, if he owned the bus, maybe. And she was like, no, that's the difference. Obviously, if he was a great man, if he was a great father, if he loved his mother and whatever, obviously I would have a prenup to protect myself, but I would. Yeah, and they started this whole discussion about classism and dating, and it was a topic on the timeline for ages.
Really?
Then Ebony K. Williams kind of, I think, incorrectly doubled down. I think what she should have said is, listen, I want a man of means because I have means and I think it's fair that I have my life. Just live that life and say, if you want someone who's rich,
security.
Yeah, that's fine. Just say that. Yeah. But then she was trying to make it into some sort of revolutionary thing where she was like, oh, we've got to start having low expectations on the black community. We're disproportionately working class. We can build beyond that. It's like, don't do all that. Just basically come out and just say, this is what I want in a partner. And just like, that's fine. Like, you ain't got to give the Martin Luther King.
Trend.
Yeah, it ain't got to be a macro trend and analysis. Like, because you know what it is? Because she probably
have preferences.
Yeah, because you probably feel shallow having those preferences. So you want to start justifying it and start talking about socioeconomic this and the macro picture this. And it's like, nah, man, just stand on what you want to stand on.
I think, like, we haven't created the systems of oppression that we live in. We didn't create capitalism. And you might have grown up in a working class household and think, when I start a family, I really want to elevate my children. I want them to get to middle class. And you might think it'll be easier for me to do that if I marry up. Like, people have been doing that for like time. I'm not going to judge you. It's your one life.
Absolutely.
You're not hurting someone along the way. I don't see what the problem is.
And I think, two things I think that tie into AI. One is,
you can marry AI now.
You can marry an AI.
Marry up.
Yeah.
Because when the robots take over, I'll already have robot babies. I'll be like, oh, I married AI.
But what I was going to say is the jobs that you think are going to be those secure, well-paying jobs.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what you think. If you think, I'm going to marry a lawyer.
Yeah.
Bruh, in 20 years, the plumber's probably going to be making more than the lawyer.
Definitely.
Because right now, I probably can upload a file to ChatGPT and it's going to give me more insight, you know what I mean, than the actual lawyer will. So I think we're going to have this shifting phase where basically we realize that actually a lot of these white-collar work jobs are probably not going to be as lucrative as they once were.
Yeah.
And how do we make that transition to basically being like, well, you know what, the plumber and the architect, not the architect, the electrician.
Yeah.
Because I've been renovating a crib and trust me, these guys are getting money. No, these guys are getting money. It's crazy. Wow. And in London, they're booked up. You can't get a builder for nothing.
No way.
They're in demand. And it's like, well, I know about 25 guys who are video editors. and they're like emailing me for work. And I'm trying to find a builder and they won't even turn up to come to my house.
Back to the old school.
The old school is the future.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think we have to be mindful of actually that when you're looking down upon certain professions, in the future, that profession is going to be what you think it is, honestly.
Okay, here's a question. Look at the state of humanity now, like the state of civilization in the most economically developed countries, for the purpose of this thought exercise. Consider the rise of AI, generative AI, its current applications, etc. Think of like the kinds of jobs it will probably replace by CEOs who are ruthless.
Me.
What jobs will people who are in school now want to do when they graduate to be rich?
to be rich? So if you're starting school, that's a very good question.
Because I think it's going to be jobs
Go on.
that solve the human problems computers can't solve.
Right. Okay.
So, for example, I think like being a matchmaker is going to potentially be like a millionaire plus job.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Potentially.
Because I think people are getting pickier, and dating apps help you find dates, but they don't help you find partners.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's going to be things like that. Like I genuinely think one of the things that AI will cause is great loneliness.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're there anyway, but I hear it.
But
yeah.
I just see like everything's too easy, everything's too advanced, everything's too automated. We're all in our little bubbles, like everything on demand, capitalism. So yeah, that's my hypothesis. What's yours?
You know what? It's interesting because I think they've done studies where they can predict what roles are most likely to be automated, and the roles that are least likely, yeah, exactly. Bye. The roles that are least likely are a lot of those high touch, human touch services like nurses and whatever, but doesn't necessarily mean they're the most well paying. So what is the intersection of that can't be automated that is also well paying? I don't know. If I knew that, then I have an ebook out right now. That'd be $10.99.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's funny actually. Do you watch the Indian Matchmaker?
No.
So there's a woman who basically based in India, and she gets paid like 20, 30, 40K to matchmake people. And obviously in Indian culture, for getting matchmade for marriage is a big deal, right? Maybe that might start coming here where you got wealthy individuals here that are like, find me a partner. I don't want to go on Tinder. And the AI is not getting me what I want. Go give me that high touch service and I'll pay it out of pocket.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. If I had a child right now that was 11 years old, I don't know what I would tell them to study.
Interesting. Here's the other thing I have. No one steal this idea.
A few thousand of you listening to this right now, do not steal this idea.
In the future, people are going to live for longer, right?
Yeah.
Because healthcare is going to advance, all this kind of stuff. But it gets to a certain point where you cannot fight biology, right?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, like our cells need to regenerate from strands of DNA.
Right.
And the quality of the DNA depreciates.
Yeah, there's a limitation.
Right?
Yeah.
Over the arc of time.
Yeah.
We'll never be able to undo that. The minute we start undoing that, we're not human anymore. We're like cyborgs. So I have a theory that in the future, people will want to curate their deaths. Hear me out. Hear me out. Instead of just waiting to find out, like, oh, am I going to get cancer, Alzheimer's, like hit by a bus? If you're really rich, and this is the business I want to do, right? I want to curate the deaths of billionaires. If you're really rich, you know, you get to 80, 85, and you're just like, hey, Abadasi, listen, I'm thinking 90, I'm going to tap out. I want to recreate that scene with Jack Nicholson in that movie with him and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Which one is that? Departed?
The Departed.
Okay, yeah.
Surrounded by hot prostitutes, mountain of cocaine.
What scene is that?
And then like when he like puts the hooker's face in the plate.
I don't remember that scene. No, I don't remember that scene.
And they're just like, and then tap me out then. Boom.
Okay, all right.
And I reckon like there's something in this. Tell me there's something in
I'm
this.
not invested, I'm sorry.
Death curation, the ultimate final living moment experience.
Listen, I like your idea, but you know what? Like, just come back to us in 6 months when you got metrics in it. Just email my assistant, and we'll be in touch.
Okay,
Here are a few other VC firms that might be able to invest. No, you know what? But the thing is, the real rich don't want to die. The real rich, the real billionaires right now are working on life extension. I think the market for that would be somebody who's really rich and they basically just found out they got a terminal diagnosis and they're like, okay, let me set this up. I want to get shot into space, or I want to, you know what I'm saying, plant me in a tree. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's a very small market because I think the real mega rich are like, yo, I'm not going nowhere, and they're working on life extension. And you know, because I think even the Google founders have like a
ultimate experience. Go on.
I think the Google founders have, you know, like they had like a division of Google. I think Google X. I can't remember, that was dedicated to life extension.
That guy Ray Kurzweil.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I don't know what came of it. I don't know what came of it. But anyways, listen, I'll come back to your idea and we'll I'll think about investing in
one last thing I just want to say.
Come back in 6 months when you got some traction.
Because we're at that point with like technology and stuff. I recently saw ABBA Voyage. You know what this is, right?
That?
So it's like ABBA the band.
Ah, yes. I want to take my mum there actually.
It's a vibe.
You went to it? Yeah, but you went.
Yeah.
Wasn't that weird though? And you just saw some 3D. You saw some 3D models.
It looked so real.
So explain what it is to the audience. Sorry.
Okay, so some people may remember 2012 Coachella. Tupac came out on stage.
Yep.
I was there, but it wasn't real Tupac.
Yeah.
It was a hologram.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 2023. Technology has now improved to the point where ABBA, the Swedish band, have used technology to create a concert they are in their peak, in their prime in this concert,
Right.
but it's a digital image, right? So they're performing all the classics and all their amazing regalia and costumes and all these cool things, but they're not real. So you walk into this concert hall, you watch this band, but it's not a real band.
What
It's
an
digital
absolute
images,
cash
it's
cow.
digital music. Now, there are times where live musicians come out, which is really, really cool. But for most of it, you're literally just watching a show. Literally, like you could be at home and
Does it look
but
real?
it looks so real. And the reason I'm saying that is because I'm saying in my business of the future, my future unicorn, the curated death for billionaires, you can be like, okay, yeah, cool. I've got a terminal condition. I want to go out with a bang. I want like a live performance from Elvis. I want Marilyn Monroe singing me happy birthday, jumping out of a cake. All of these things are now possible thanks to technology.
Okay.
And come on down to my parlor and I'll make it happen for you.
But you know what? The ABBA thing, though, like, I want to move on from your idea because it's a bad idea. I'm sorry. But the ABBA thing is such a cash cow for them because you think about it now, it's just like they're able to monetize their IP without actually having to do a single thing.
Exactly.
Like
Scalable.
they set up the technology and then it's scalable forever. They could be
Software.
on the beach right now, 75 years old,
Yeah.
whereas their 25-year-old version is out there performing and getting them a royalty every time they perform.
It's
Genius.
such a vibe. But can I just say, like, I recently watched this tweet. I'm gonna have to find the guy's name. But anyway, Dan Runcie, Trapital, was talking about.
Yeah, he's very
brands.
smart. For on a trapezoid.
I need to find the actual name of the professor so we can drop it into the
Okay, yeah.
podcast. But he was saying how like there's lots of different levels of brands, and the best, highest level of a brand is like a brand that feels like an ideology. So I'll just take you through the steps, and I'm not really doing it justice. But the first step is like, you know, trust, and it's like, okay, wow, I trust this brand. Like, let's say, I don't know, shoes, no, they protect my feet, I feel great. Then there's like the like leadership element. It's like, oh, and it's run by Phil Knight, Shoe Dog.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
such a
yeah.
legend. I really love him. Then there's like the ideology. It's like everything this brand does aligns with my values and who I am. They're sustainable, they're ethical, they're international, they're like trendy.
Right.
I want to like put their sticker on my laptop. I want to like show people, I'm going to put a poster of them in my house so people know I'm really aligned with them. And I just think it's pretty incredible that, you know, ABBA just as a brand, as a music brand, has reached the point where they can create an arena. People will travel to it, and it's not even really them, but their songs are so powerful and so moving.
It's cult-like following,
Like,
basically.
how many musicians could really do that?
I think there's a few, it's a handful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? There's a handful. Bee Gees, Michael Jackson, Elvis.
Oh, MJ.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, would you go
Why
to that?
aren't they then?
I think these are ABBA are the pioneers, and if it works, they're gonna see basically, right? I'm sure the Michael Jackson estate or the Whitney Houston estate is probably thinking about it, and
I would see.
keeping a close eye. It's actually funny you mentioned about kind of. To me, I call those like cult-like followings, basically. And when I was on a Zoom call with a bunch of other media entrepreneurs during the pandemic, I think I told you about this.
Yeah.
I managed to go into this call, and there was a whole bunch of high flyers there, people doing billions of dollars of revenue. And one guy was like, "Listen, look to the church. That's the business model." He was basically like,
that.
he said, "Look to the church because that's like." Especially if you go to like, I'm sure a lot of these Protestant
kinda sad and
evangelical
messed
churches,
up,
it's messed up. I was taking notes furiously. It's like, listen, you go to the church, they sell you products. There's a community gathering.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You get together. I can't remember what the other things he was basically saying, but essentially he's like the business model of the church is one that you probably should try to replicate if you've got some sort of like business or media brand, basically, right? And getting that kind of cult like devotion is basically where the kind of the mega brands of the future are going to come from, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look to the church, man. We covered quite a lot, to be honest.
Can I talk about how luxury goods are a scam? Kind of.
Okay, go on.
I just want to talk a little bit about luxury goods for a second.
Go on.
Because luxury is a part of the fashion world that's actually like blowing up, like
Yeah.
in incredible amount. And I think we've spoken on the podcast before about how luxury introducing streetwear was actually like a really smart play, because instead of like expecting people to like come to them, they kind of like went down to the people and they're like, look, athleisure is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Let's go for it. But you know, people like Kimberly Foster of like Fort Harriet and stuff have kind of spoken in the past about like the problematic nature of luxury brands, because effectively it's like a status symbol to have a Chanel handbag or an Hermes handbag or whatever. But it's also like thousands, if not tens of thousands, that kind of just goes into a mostly white male owned company and doesn't necessarily like bring anything back into the community. So anyway, I find the concept of like luxury really interesting. Now, there are only a few occasions where I've been a luxury consumer.
Okay.
And I'm starting to believe that like luxury is a bit of a scam.
You got
So
there
the
now,
most expensive pair of shoes I ever bought after I sold my crypto, as you know.
Okay. Yeah, I think you mentioned this before to me.
I only wore a couple of times. Most expensive pair of shoes I've ever bought in my life. Do you want to know how much they were?
No, go on. Shocked me.
£540
That's not even that bad compared to what I'm hearing out here in these streets.
for sandals.
Okay, that's what for flip-flops, yeah? Is that £500 for flip-flops?
I wore them twice. And I went to wear them the other
You
day.
only wear them twice, though, because it's like, you don't want to damage them.
I went to open them the other day. They're broken.
Oh, wow.
Like, literally the strap that connects to the sole snapped.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm getting, like, a refund because apparently the shoes aren't in stock anymore and, like, la da da da. The customer service has been excellent. But I was just like, for a pair of sandals, for which I paid $540, that's more than the rent I paid for most of my 20s, by the way.
Yeah, that's real.
You break after 2 wears, and like somehow in the box, like I wasn't even like raving in these things. I literally just like walked around, and I was just like, wow, that's actually mad. And you know, the last few times I've been to places like Chanel or anything like this, back in the day, the craftsmanship and the handiwork, it would be like real soft calfskin leather. It would be real solid gold chains.
Yeah.
Now the price of the bag has gone up exponentially, but it's like gold-plated stainless steel.
There we go.
What's going on?
Because the value is not in the materials. The value is in the cachet and status that you have owning the product.
Exactly.
It's not in the materials. I mean, like when I was, I sound like a boring person. I'm talking about my house renovation. When I was looking at a new bed, like I could see the beds that were like 2-3 Gs were the ones that were like solid oak and it was whatever. But it's still a private matter. That's your bed in your house. But those items that are bags that you're gonna wear outside, those are more sick. I think they just. I know people would say to you, "No, it's for me. I want to feel good."
And they're investment pieces. Some of them do appreciate.
But why are they investment pieces? Because they keep going up in price exponentially, and why exactly? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do you know what I mean? And that's it's a status symbol, and they're great investments. I think. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's not for me. So, what's your relationship with luxury now? Are you chilling? Are you getting involved? Are you investing?
So I think the only area that I'm now interested in is watches.
Okay, I hear you on that one.
Because like it's just been really interesting, and this is stuff that I've been reading in like Financial Times and The Economist and stuff like that. Especially now with inflationary pressure and the value of cash just dropping, right, as inflation rises. It's really interesting to see things that are happening with things like Rolexes.
Right, yeah.
Right? Like, and the value that they retain over time. So I think the only part of the world that I'm now, luxury world that I'm now interested in investing in, and this will still not even be to wear. Like if I did buy a Rolex, it would not be to wear. It would be so that 20 years from now, I could like sell it for my kid's college fund. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But as far as clothes, I mean, people say my drip is fine and most of it is secondhand or high street. So I'm chill.
The funny thing about Rolex, I heard actually that the limited supply of Rolexes is actually fake. And they produce quite a lot of them every year.
Shut up. Are they doing some like Saudi Arabia OPEC oil
basically, yeah. So you go into the shop sometimes and I think they will have like, oh, this is sold out. You can't see nothing on the display. But apparently they've got loads in the back. And then they'll come to you and say, oh, we've got, we'll put your name on the list and we'll be in touch like when we've got stock. Complete lie.
Oh my.
They've got plenty of stock.
Tell me if
no, I swear to you. And I've heard, I don't know how true this is. This could be complete BS. But I've heard that when they like, oh, look, we want to like take your name down, we'll be in touch. Apparently now they're looking at your social media and thinking, do you want to sell to you? Because who owns these products is also a part of the cachet. Like if you're someone who they think is tacky or whatever, they don't want no Rolex on your wrist. I don't know. This is complete fake news. I have not done my due diligence. But you know what I'm saying? It's just rumors. I think we got to wrap it up. Final 10 minutes. We good? Yeah. So one interesting story that I think is telling about how pathetic our obsession with celebrity is. So Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, I remember seeing pictures of him chilling with Jay-Z and Beyonce on on a yacht. I think they had a house in the Hamptons together or something like that. They were chilling quite a lot. And then a few months later or sometime later, we heard that Square, now known as Block, was acquiring Tidal, Jay-Z's streaming service. Yeah. Right. Now, there's been a documentation that's been released that essentially says that the entire Square board was against the deal, that Jack Dorsey was the only one that was for the deal, that Tidal was a failing business that had lawsuits coming up at the wazoo, and Jay-Z had personally loaned the company $50 million just to keep it alive.
Shut up.
So essentially what happened is Jack Dorsey was so enamored by basically being friends with Jay-Z and Beyonce that they managed to offload a piece of dog shit to him, basically.
Wow.
Because there is no correlation between what Square does and what Tidal does. If anything, it would have made more sense for Twitter while he was still CEO to buy Tidal, because at least you could say it's media, it's content. But Square, payments processing, music, and it's just, the ultimate finesse. Shout out to Jay. He said he could sell water.
hustler,
He said he could sell water to a well, and he found a sucker because listen, Tidal apparently was a better product, and a lot of people did use Tidal, but it wasn't a growing product.
No.
It wasn't. There was no real product market fit.
No.
And I think he sold it for like $500 million and cashed out.
Damn,
So
respect.
how pathetic is that though? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean,
Jack, man, how are you going to shag your own shareholders like that and buy a product just because you want to be next to a celebrity? That's ridiculous.
He won't be the first person to do it, but like,
Credit to Jigger, I guess.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm just shocked. I mean, even at the time, we were just like, this is a weird acquisition.
And what's happened since? Nothing.
Yeah.
So what's happened to Tidal? Like, it's gone.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be written down to zero. So, shame on Jack Dorsey. You got played, bro.
Wow.
Yeah. Any thoughts on Vice?
I was just gonna say one.
Any thoughts on Vice and BuzzFeed basically going out of business?
Yeah, the news landscape is changing.
It's happened. These are millennial media brands that we kind of grew up on.
How am I gonna know which Disney princess I am?
I know. How am I gonna know what the warlords of Liberia are up to without Vice?
TikTok's killing them.
Yeah.
Because people used to spend their lunchtime scrolling like BuzzFeed, and I don't know. There's just been such a like proliferation of like smaller media brands that, you know, it used to be like Vice as a indication of something cool, noteworthy, curating subculture, but now like influencers do that. So
yes,
I didn't know, like influencers are publishers in their own right.
I think that's definitely one massive factor. I think the other factor was it was just way too much frothiness in the market. There's no way that Vice was worth tens of billions. I think its valuation was in the billions. To me, the most compelling part of their products were their kind of documentaries they did on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's no way you could tell me that you can spin out a giant billion-dollar company out of YouTube videos that were really... Don't get twisted. The videos were amazing. You know, the warlords of Liberia and, you know what I'm saying, fascinating stuff. But, like, this was complete frothiness that they managed to scale up. But I think the founder cashed out. Shane Gillis, whatever his name is. He made tens of millions, hundreds of millions. So more for the company that got
To be honest, I'm surprised Vice even lasted so long, because when all those stories came out about sexual harassment,
I didn't even know that. Wow.
It was years ago. Like, you know, mountains of cocaine in their staff parties,
yes, I heard that.
All the like hushed sexual harassment allegations. They were really in trouble, but I mean, you know, they managed to like weather that storm and get through it. So
I think I guess I could call myself a media entrepreneur. I guess we have a podcast and Pocket does media. But the reason why I don't think of myself as a media entrepreneur is because very rarely do I try to sell media. What I mean by that is I haven't made money. I mean,
advertising.
We have ad reads here, so I guess you could say that. But obviously Pocket, I mean, Techish is still kind of a side business and we have our main businesses. So in my main business, we have a recruitment product.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't believe that you can make money anymore just starting a pure media company anymore. No. I'm not, and when I say make money, you can have a good living. Like this podcast would make a good living, but I don't think it's a thing where you could build $1 billion brand anymore without basically selling something to your audience that's not just adverts. You're going to have a product that speaks to your audience. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
economy's changed the game.
Completely.
Because it used to be that the media got you the attention, right? But now attention's everywhere. Yeah. It's like on Twitch, it's on Discord, it's on TikTok, and it's being filtered through individuals, influencers. Not even that. Even if you manage, brands were gatekeepers.
But even if you manage to coalesce the audience and you manage to beat the TikTok influencers and you have a media brand, you've got a website that's writing articles. I don't think you can make money just selling ad space. I think you have to have some sort of product.
Yeah.
Whether that's a paid product to the audience, whether you're selling them a physical product. Yeah. The idea that you're going to start a website and sell ads, it's over.
I think you could start a media brand purely for like customer acquisition, like almost on the B2B side.
Exactly.
I'll launch a media brand to get you your target audience. But yeah, I think it's got to be a bit more sophisticated than just ads.
And I think actually, ironically, listen, we're on the HubSpot podcast network. That's what they're doing. They're kind of getting all these kind of podcasts and YouTube channels and whatever. And they're basically saying, we've got our product HubSpot and we now want the media arm of it.
100%.
So I think every company is basically going to become a media company, but being a pure media company, it just doesn't work anymore. Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. And obviously, listen, it's a scary time for a lot of journalists. Like I hire journalists and they have a lot of journalist friends and it's just layoffs galore. You think it's bad in tech. It's just like...
Wait till you get to media.
It's mad. All right, cool. Let's wrap it up.
I just have one story.
Yeah, shoot.
It's the glamorization of white criminals.
Okay, we've got 6 minutes.
Okay, cool. I'll be fast. So I just want to talk about like the glamorization of white criminals.
Yeah.
So I have a New York Times...
People like me.
I have a New York Times subscription.
Okay.
And over the weekend, I was like, let me see what's on the New York Times. And I saw a profile of Liz.
Oh, I was about to talk about this. The rebrand, baby. Yes, let's go.
So someone is on a rebrand campaign, to quote your words. She's no longer Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos with her deep voice and her black Steve Jobs turtleneck. She's now Liz Holmes, mother of two in Brooklyn, just looking for some positive attention and some compassion from the American public. Now, I'm going to tell you that I felt very uncomfortable reading this article.
But you read it though.
Of course I read it.
What was the gist of it then?
Because I wanted something to complain about.
Yeah.
Like every other good millennial, I wanted something to complain about. No, the gist of the article is that basically she's trying to show how, she doesn't feel she's guilty. It was her husband that bullied her. She has this family to look after. It's so unfair that she's going to jail. She's been completely misunderstood. It's just like that American woman that was accused of murder in Italy. We do this thing where we glamorize white criminals. And I just wanted to point that out because I just feel like nobody's done that for, let's say, like the founders of Black Lives Matter, who have been facing accusations of like fraud
corruption
and allegations of stuff like that. No one's gone to them and said, what's your side of the story, babe?
Yeah.
Like I want to see what the truth really is, and I just kind of wanted to like put that out there.
Yeah, you know what? I think I've gone in on Elizabeth Holmes enough on the show, but I think her level of scrupulousness never it always just baffles me. And to be honest, like it's a harsh thing to say, but it wouldn't surprise me if she did start having children just so that she can get more of a lenient prison sentence, because it is quite an effective strategy. I think at the moment she's waiting for her sentencing. So she's been found guilty. So right now it's a PR campaign to basically, how do I reduce my sentence? And if I can frame myself as, a mother, I've got 2 kids, how can you do this to me? Because even me, if I'm a judge, I'm going to be like, it's no longer just affecting you now, it's affecting these 2 children who, through no fault of their own, are now going to lose their mother for 20 years, irrespective of the fact that you deserve it. So listen, I think I
just feel like if she weren't a white woman, she wouldn't be in the New York Times.
Yeah, she knows that.
Yeah,
she knows that.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll leave it there. We'll record on it. We've got outros in the bank.
Nice.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you.
Sorry about the video editors, man. I just saw